Okay, so right now students, they all have their powder, they have a brush, they have a paper plate, and that's basically to keep the stuff from sliding off because it is super black powder. If you're doing this at home, a simulated version of this at home, you're going to need some sort of makeup powder, or I mean honestly, you could use pencil shavings if you can just scrape a pencil. Okay, it'll work in a similar fashion. It won't be perfect, but for what we're doing, it'll be just fine. Okay. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to come around and I'm going to go ahead and give all the students my thumbprint or my fingerprint. Now the thing we say about fingerprints is don't try to catch, when you're learning here, don't try to get ones that you don't know where they're at. Start with something that you know where it's at. So you're going to take your finger, you're going to rub it against the greasiest, nastiest part of your face. So if you didn't, if you ate some fried chicken for lunch, great. Or you haven't washed your face in a couple days, great. Now I'm just laying my fingerprint on the top of each of these. Now if you're at home and you have a white porcelain plate or a white plate that's not textured, so plastic does not work. You could start with plastic, but if it's like a torn up plastic plate or been through the dishwasher a bunch of times, it's not going to work as effectively. Okay, and so I'm putting my prints on all of these, and some of them are getting some fairly large and gross prints because I purposely did not wash my face this morning. Throw a second one on there. All right, make sure we have enough here. Okay, so now they all have prints, and we're using these plastic surfaces so they can find them. Now I'm gonna pass these out, and then we're gonna move to the lights, to the flashlight stage. All right, so you've got your fingerprint on there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna turn off the lights, and you're gonna go ahead and illuminate it from the side so you can see your fingerprint. Don't try to dust anything yet. So Leo, you can go ahead and use your phone, the light on your phone, just to light up to the side of it, okay? And what's gonna happen is when you light up to the side of it, it's going to show up. You're going to be able to see it. So throw it at an angle. Some of y'all I can see really clearly, but all of them have been placed with a fingerprint on there. The print, and remember when you're using your flashlight, you're shining not down, you're shining more to that kind of perpendicular to the table or with a bit of an angle. And what you're doing is you're catching the oil, you're catching the refraction of the light from the oil and the dirt in your fingertips. That's why, that's why I was rubbing my foreheads to lay my print. So if you're having trouble getting a good print to start on this, that's what you're going to do. Okay, now for step 2, okay, you just kind of follow me for this one. For step 2, yeah, I got prints on that. You are going to go ahead and you're going to start with your brush. And with your brush, go ahead, twist it out, make sure it's nice and twisty if there's any clumps in it. So just kind of put a little spin on it. All right, good. Okay, now that it's kind of separated some, you're going to go ahead and put it in your dust. Okay, so I'm going to grab my container real quick. Yeah, and you're just going to kind of tap it into there just a little bit, just to get the edge, and then just knock it off some. Okay, so kind of a light dusting, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of dust the area. Okay?
Like a fingerprint?
Yeah, you're dusting it for the fingerprint because you know where the fingerprint is, but under normal circumstances you may not be able to find it as effectively. Okay, and it's just tap and dust, tap and dust. And remember, you want to be gentle with this because you don't want to smear your fingerprint. You may not even actually be touching it too much, and I'm going to get a little more on mine. I practice this like once or twice a year, so believe me, I'm not much better than y'all aside from having done this like 40 or 50 times. Because I just really don't do this that often.
And the dude in the video made it look a lot easier.
Well, it's kind of like you playing soccer or whatever sport you play. If you've been doing it all your life, it looks easy. You're like, oh man, Michael Jordan makes it look easy. until you realize that he's been doing it a really long time. Okay. All right, so I got mine dusted, and I'm going to come around. I'm going to show you mine. Let me show the camera first. As you can see, we got it. My prints are clean, and when we take a photo of them or when we pull them, they're going to be easy to pull. All right, so here's the thing with dust. Less is more. You got to use the super gentle touch, and yes, it's going to take a while before you get it right. Honestly, I was telling the students in class, I don't think this was recorded, is I do this about 2 or 3 times a year, which means I'm not very practiced at it, but I've done this like 40 or 50 times overall. So this is one of those things that I still have to practice at, and this actually kind of upends the rule of art versus science. You need to be really light with the hand to collect good prints, okay? To process it, honestly, you can go through the methodology using the computer program and you can get pretty successful. But a lot of it is, hey, are you collecting it properly? So let's move into step 3. For step 3, I am handing out some transparent fingerprint tape. Now, if you are at home and you don't have fingerprint tape, which I honestly guess you probably don't, get the clearest tape you possibly can, okay? And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull off a section, and I am going to cut a section for each student. And the process for this is that you're going to take your fingerprint. Okay, come on up closer for this. Get your fingerprint that's been dusted. Can you focus on that, or do you see it? Okay, you're going to take your tape, you're going to push it down on one side, and you're going to lay it over on the other side. And you're just going to carefully push all the air bubbles out. Okay? Now what you've done is you've sealed your fingerprint here. Okay? Okay, so for this, to kind of simulate this, to make it a little clearer. So I've got my big fake fingerprint here, and I'm using duct tape just to make it really clear. So I've got my piece. Now your tape is probably, well, wider than the fingerprint as a general rule, but it may not be. And you put basically you put an anchor point. The anchor point, you have not touched the fingerprint yet. And once you have it, you're going to lay it down very gently. And you're just going to press it down. If you have any air bubbles, you want to press the air bubbles out. Okay? And this is the stage that you're stopping at this point. So, to kind of simulate the process, you're going to very carefully.
From the top part or from the bottom?
It honestly doesn't matter which part it comes from. You're just going to pull it up, and you're going to apply it flat to your card. Now, any excess stuff, you're just going to roll around to the other side of the card. Now, the students in my class have these cards, and you would actually fill out the information first for this. So, this one I don't have any information filled out, but I've got this big wide open spot. Now, if you have a Post-it note, or you've got a plain or an unlined note card, you can simulate that with this. If all else fails, fold up a piece of white paper if you're at home and you're trying to simulate this. Okay? All I'm doing, very carefully and unfortunately quickly, pulling that off. I'm going to very lightly lay this down on the card. I'm going to fold over my edge, and you can now see the fingerprint. Okay, so go ahead, and if you will go ahead and do that process and put it on your card. Okay, so had a great question from a student, and the question was, do we keep the tape on it? That answer is yes. So that tape becomes a permanent part of the card. Now, what you're going to do if you're doing this professionally is you would take a super high-res image with this. And by super high-res image, I don't mean your cell phone. I mean like Samsung Red class camera, a massive, like super high resolution DSLR camera, like a traditional digital or physical film camera, okay? Not your cell phone. You're just not gonna get the quality of shot that you want for this. They do make some adapters for cell phones that will let you get that quality, but it's usually almost the price of the cell phone itself, okay? Because they are literally designed to be something that you could take a clean enough shot to be admissible in court. Okay, so once you have this process, you're going to go through and you're going to document the process. So if you are at home, you're basically going to walk through this process and you're going to be photographing the different steps and labeling them and following along with the PowerPoint that I have at the end here. Okay? If you have any questions, please shoot me an email at matt.menifee@wacoisd.org, and I'll give you the rest of the instructions in the next link or video.